Hello there, and welcome back to Tranquility du Jour, nourishing conversations about living a full and meaningful and beautiful life with doses of tranquility. This is episode 521, and I'm your host, Kimberly Wilson, bringing you tranquility through this medium since 2005. Today, we're talking with Sammy Davis on the joy of thrifting. What's vintage? What is that definition? And kind of where to get started with shopping sustainable secondhand. Now, those of you who are new to the podcast, you can find the show notes at kimberlywilson.com/521. Also, be sure to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode of Tranquility du Jour. And you can find previous episodes over at kimberlywilson.com/podcast, plus the TDJ podcast app for iPhone and Androids. And if you are new to Tranquility du Jour, a huge welcome. And you can find out more at kimberlywilson.com/new. And I'm really excited to share that I am offering a TDJ annual pass for all sorts of offerings in 2021. It'll get you virtual retreats, it'll get you planning sessions, it'll get you co-working sessions, all sorts of fun stuff. Anyway, you can find out more at kimberlywilson.com/2021. It's all about making 2021 a bit more tranquil. Now, if you are interested in the New Year's virtual retreat happening on January 1st from 2 to 5, would love to have you, and it is included in your TDJ annual pass for those of you who pick that up. And again, all of this you can find out more at kimberlywilson.com. Hello there, listener. One thing that I think I know about you is that you love books, just like me. And it can be tricky to find the time to read. So that's why Audible is an excellent resource. You can listen anywhere from various devices, your iPhone, your tablet, your computer, while you're waiting in line, at the doctor's office, all sorts of places. You just whip it out and you are ready to go with your entire library. And you can also pick up right where you left off. There's hundreds of thousands of titles, including this month's online book club pick, Dolly Parton Songteller, My Life in Lyrics. Would love to have you reading along with us. So you can sign up for a free 30-day trial, and your first book is free with audibletrial.com/tranquility du jour. Happy reading. So Sammy Davis is a busy New Yorker who quit a career in fashion publishing to launch a brand on all things secondhand fashion and resale in 2008. Since then, she sold designer and vintage clothes at Brooklyn flea markets, operated a trendy New York City vintage boutique, appeared on national TV representing thrifting and sustainable style, and since launching the New York City Bargain Thrift Store Tour in 2018, thrifted with thousands of tourists and locals in and around the city. She currently works as a resale coach, offering consulting and courses via a membership community called Thrift Boss Babes, which is a paid subscription marketplace where members buy and sell thrifted finds, all while learning how to level up their resale businesses. Her mission is helping people live their best lives and looks for less, while also contributing to a more sustainable world and being better stewards of their personal finances as thrifters. In October, she co-hosted the first ever virtual thrift style conference, The Heart of Thrift, and you can find her on Instagram at SammyDTV and her Facebook groups, Thrift Babes and Thrift Boss Babes. Welcome, Sammy.
Hi, Kimberly. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. I was trying to think about what year it was that I met you, whenever we met up at a bookstore with Leslie and a few other people.
Yes.
That maybe 2010, maybe?
I believe it was either 2009 or 2010 because I know I met Leslie around 2009.
Okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, so it's been fun to watch your journey. I think I've watched it, I guess, on Instagram or Facebook, of course. And so can you talk a little bit about your journey into fashion?
Yeah. My goodness. These are one of those questions where you're not sure where to begin, but I will begin at the beginning and then speed up. I have lived in New York City for 12 years. It is my soulmate city. And I moved here for a publishing career. And I was a very ambitious millennial. and wanted to be an editor-in-chief of a women's magazine. However, I ended up working for Esquire, which is a men's magazine. And very quickly, I realized that the allure of working on the 25th floor of a high-rise was not quite what my soul needed. And while it was a big risk, I took the big risk of actually quitting that job and launching a resale business because I had explored the flea markets of New York City and I had met some vintage fashion vendors, and they had given me confidence that it was possible. And the younger you are, the more possible you think things are. So that's why it's very important that we take those risks when we are younger. And so that's exactly what I did. I actually pursued a freelance writing career alongside building a vintage resale business. And I learned a lot. I had a lot of highs, a lot of lows, just a lot of learning lessons, but I was having fun. Even though it was difficult, I was in my sweet spot of joy and what I believed and what felt to be meaningful for my life. And from there, because it was the dark ages of the internet, and we were just briefly speaking about that earlier, Kimberly. So it was around 2010 that I started a website, and I had read a book by Gary Vaynerchuk, who is a social media guru and just spokesperson for hustle and building your own brand. And that book really inspired me to understand that I could build an online community and I could monetize that community, especially in the niche of vintage fashion. And I know we'll talk about this briefly, but vintage fashion are garments that are technically 20 years or older. So because it's 2020, that would mean something prior to the year 2000. And vintage fashion lovers, we are very unique people. And while we have different styles, different personal styles, we all bond around the fact that we love vintage. And so what I did is I built a very informational site and learned some very technical things to monetize that site, went on to actually work for eBay, built a YouTube channel, ran a vintage store where I learned a lot about just resale and customer service and helping people through style. I did pretty much everything I could to nurture this passion and to continue to really find my way, because of course you don't really know what's going to work. You have to throw a lot of things against the wall. And so where I am today, because I do have to speed up or I would be talking to you, Kimberly, for 20 minutes. But where I am today is I've really found this crux of my passion for fashion, of course, my passion for secondhand, my commitment to being more sustainable, being a steward of our planet, as well as helping women to live their best lives and helping women through secondhand to discover themselves and to claim the joy of thrifting as something for them and to connect with a community who rally behind them. And so where my work rests now is I actually have a 5,000 member Facebook community. And my brand is called Thrift Babes. So if you thrift, you're a babe, basically. I don't care who you are, how old you are, if you're a man, if you're a woman, you're a babe. And in this community, I help people to build a resale business. So my, all of my skill sets have enabled me to understand business practices as well as being a reseller, because that's really how I started. I was selling clothes out of the trunk of my car, literally. And so now I help women create a second or a first stream of income through the power of resale. And my mission, my real mission behind that is because I want more women to be, to feel and to create more financial freedom. So that financial freedom could be more time freedom. It just could be self-confidence because they're doing something that they're so interested in, or it could be making another $3,000 a month, or even as small as $500, which is really life-changing for some people. And so really what I sell and offer is I have a membership community where people buy and sell from each other. So there's about 2,000 members. So you pay a price to be a seller. And then I offer coaching. I offer courses. I offer mini workshops. And I just finished what I believe is the first ever virtual thrift style conference, which is a brand new endeavor, but that's really, again, for my passion behind bringing people together through their interest of thrifting. So instead of having an in-person conference due to COVID, we hosted a virtual conference, and the title of that conference is The Heart of Thrift, because, and I know we'll talk about this briefly later, but there's so much more to thrifting and fashion than what you're wearing. There's so much below the surface level. And so, yes, so that's where my work rests now. I'm very passionate about just helping people to believe that it's possible for them. And so whether that's resale or whether that's taking a photo of themselves in an outfit they love, if I can help them to feel better about themselves, I've done something right with my business.
Yeah, I love it. I love your journey and your evolution, and it's been fun to watch. I love your videos; are super fun. And you know what's really cool is in your bio it says that your mission is helping people live their best lives in looks for less, while also contributing to a more sustainable world and being better stewards of personal finances as thrifters. And, I just love this, right? Because it's not, I mean, style is lovely and so important, I think, for people on so many levels. And yet you take it further, right? Because it's thrifting. So it's secondhand, sustainability, and then also stewards of personal finances. Because yes, thrifting is typically going to be cheaper than, buying something brand new. So tell us a little bit about how you developed this mission, because I do love it. And the fact that, as you were discussing a moment ago, there's just so many layers to this. It's not just like, oh, I got this really cute polka dot dress that was, it's circa 1990,
Exactly, which we love finding. And that's like the thrill of the hunt. So as I've developed myself, as a, female who's 34, she left her job at 24. I've had a lot of opportunities to just really think. Long story short, I've been self-employed for 10 years. So actually now I guess 11. And through the process of building this business, Kimberly, I really came to realize what it is that is so much more important about it than just, again, that surface level. Okay, I found a 90s polka dot dress. And what I found is that the people who thrift, whether, they're 12 or they're 62, if they're new to thrifting, it's as if they're working a muscle of self-discovery. And I was also really able to hone in on this, which I didn't even mention earlier. Again, I laugh because I've done so many things. Up until COVID, I was running a personal group tour business around thrifting. So I worked with Airbnb, TripAdvisor, Meetup. So I would bring groups of people around thrift stores in New York City. And some people had been thrifters and some people were new to thrifting. So I was able to almost coach people through the process of discovering what thrifting meant to them. And time again, I would just see people's eyes light up when they would find something that worked for them. And they would feel so proud, because we will be digging in these racks where nothing's organized by size, maybe organized by color, if that. And you just really have to, it's almost a meditation. So you're meditating at the thrift store. You're allowing yourself to be pulled toward a garment. You're almost surrendering to that attraction versus the mind, which maybe in like a new garment store might be like, let me just get what looks good on me. I'm just going to go straight here or straight there. A thrift store, it's as if the garments find you. And then, as you're working this muscle of just leaning into the surrender of what garment is right for me, you become more confident in just exploring and experimenting. Again, just doing something out of the box for you. And so, Kimberly, what I've seen for myself and then all of these people I've worked with is that as we continue to thrift and work on that skill, quote unquote, it can translate into other areas of our lives. I know that a lot of fashion shows really go in on self-confidence when it comes to what they're wearing. Okay, that's great. But I do believe that there's so much more self-confidence when, again, you go into a secondhand store and you personally find that right thing for you. You're more proud of yourself. You're just like, you're excited. It's something to talk about. It's something to share. It was $5 as opposed to $50. And then, of course, if it looks good on you, great. That's an added bonus. But again, it's what lies below the surface that is so important with thrifting. And as we become a more socially conscious culture, which I do believe we have been stepping into more and more every single day, there's still so much work, but people are recognizing and brands are recognizing, Kimberly, that secondhand is here to stay, and that people are choosing secondhand over new because it is using a pre-existing material. I don't know the statistics for sure, but I'm pretty sure that there's enough clothes on the planet to clothe the next 2 generations, if not more. So brands like Levi's are actually now reselling their old Levi's because they know that there's a market share of consumers, especially my age and younger, who are rejecting new and current fashion. We will not buy it. So I really predict that the resale industry, especially right now, I mean, we are talking about a timely topic, but COVID has shut down a lot of businesses, a lot of fashion production facilities abroad and elsewhere. But resale is growing perhaps at a faster rate than retail, simply because we're making different buying decisions. We're becoming more socially conscious, and there's just more awareness that, wow, I don't feel like I can change global warming. I can go to a protest. I can vote for the right senator. I can do what I can politically, but I feel helpless. But I don't feel helpless when I go into a thrift store and I choose something that's secondhand, or I buy a secondhand piece of furniture, or I just do what I can with what I have. And thrifting enables that. And so again, being a steward of your finances, back to having this coaching business around the power of resale. A lot of us, we might have school debt. We might have credit card debt. It just might be very difficult to make an extra dollar. And there's no judgment in that. We're all doing the best we can. Technology has enabled us to reach a consumer base that we never would have reached 10 years ago. Because when I started reselling 10 years ago, 11 years ago, there was eBay. That was pretty much, I think Etsy had just come out. So there were very minimal apps. Now we have Depop, Poshmark, Mercari, eBay, Etsy. I feel like I'm missing one. There's a ton. And so we have Facebook Marketplace. So if you are someone that just needs extra cash every month, you can turn to resale as a part-time gig that can work for you at whatever level you want it to work for you. And the consumer base is there. Basically, my whole point is that technology is bringing the consumers to you. And if you really work at it, it can be something that becomes a substantial amount of income. I have a client, actually, she's a teacher's aide, doesn't make a lot of money. And this sounds cliche, but she told me a few months ago, she said, Christmas wasn't hard for my family this year because I had this extra income. So it's very deep, Kimberly. Again, I could probably, expand even more, but there's just so much to thrifting. And I think if you're listening, it's really just about, again, dipping your toes into it and then discovering all of those added benefits for yourself and allowing that feeling to be something that gives you an experience with thrifting that going to a a mainstream new retail store cannot give you. It just can't give you those feelings at all. You just walk in the store, buy something and leave.
Yeah, it's funny. Just hearing you talk, it makes me think it was probably, maybe it was 8-ish years ago, but I was doing a lot of vintage. I would pick beautiful things up, say like I was in Vegas visiting a friend. I'd go to the Vegas thrift shops or New York. I mean, there's so many amazing ones in New York. And then I would sell them on my clothing line website, under Vintage Reclaimed, right? And so that was just so fun because everything was very curated. But it takes a ton of time, right? To go to these shops, so fun, dig through all the racks, etc. And so, I'm just kind of curious for our listeners who are like, oh, that sounds kind of time consuming. As you said
Mhm.
earlier, it is the thrill of the hunt. And
Mhm.
what would you say are kind of like some of your top tips, right? Whenever you go into a thrift store, where do you begin? Like, I remember I would just always go to the racks that had the black, right? Because I love
Yeah,
black, or,
I love
you
black
know,
too.
I love black. Or like, the shoes. I'm always about like the boots. I got these great pink cowboy boots, baby pink, in my size. What are the chances? I think it was First Avenue. It's just like family thrift or something. Anyway, it's just great thrift store. And it's just amazing the stuff you can find that is so exciting. And you're like, nobody else has this.
Yeah.
But again, how do you kind of get started with this and have the confidence when you walk in to not be overwhelmed?
Yes, yes, yes. I will say most if you are brand new to thrifting, you will probably be overwhelmed, and that's okay. When I would lead my tours, I would mentally prepare people to be a little overwhelmed, and I would say, okay, where do you want to start? So like you said, Kimberly, okay, you wear dresses a lot. Let's just go straight to the dresses. I was thrifting yesterday actually, and I was a little frustrated because the store was so big, I couldn't get to every nook and cranny. But again, some of the lessons I've learned from thrifting is that I don't have to get to every nook and cranny. There is kind of a flow of, back to your pink boots, right? So how could you find pink cowgirl boots in your size if there wasn't a universal flow of energy leading them to you? So I trust the process. When I'm at a thrift store, I just trust the process as opposed to, oh my gosh, I have to look at every single item because I just have to, because that does create a feeling of overwhelm. And then there's this reality of there will always be more things. So it's okay to dip in and dip out and come back next week. There will be just as many awesome things. I'm not missing out. And that helps me in my real life, because in real life, we can always feel like we're missing out, or like, oh, I have to do everything, but that creates anxiety and overwhelm. So back to just tangible tips as you said, it is good to find a section of the store, maybe give yourself 25 minutes. Don't try to explore the whole store, especially if you're just beginning, because you don't quite have the skills yet to do that. But as you mature in your skills, you can start to just look at the rack and start to look for prints and materials, or feel the textile to be like, okay, I'm going to pull this one out. The other big tip that I have, because some people do like to look at things on a individual basis, and it can be hard sometimes to scan the rack. I do understand that takes a very trained eye. I will show people when I'm on a tour, I will push all the hangers to one side so that there's more space, and I will one by one go through them. And again, it's like a meditation. So I'll try to have some music on, or a podcast, or an audiobook from Audible, just something where I'm multitasking in a sense, but I'm in this meditative state that is hopefully relaxing me, because I believe that thrifting can relax you. And when it comes to resale in general, most people I coach start with what's in their home, because we as American Western consumers have the largest homes, the largest storage units. We use credit unlike any other country. We have too much stuff. And you probably have a couple grand around your house. You might have some things new with tags that you've never worn. You might have things that no longer fit you. You might have things in your garage. You might literally have a power tool that you could flip on eBay for $200 that you just don't use because you just no longer need it. I can't in this podcast teach you what to look for, but there's a lot of good information out there. I'm not the only resale coach on the planet. There's a ton of people doing what I do. And you can begin to look at other people's blogs, on their Instagrams, things like that. It is important, I feel, if you are going into clothing resale, to have an eye for fashion. Some people don't, and they prefer home decor, like little knickknacks, things like that can do very well. Of course, you have to learn how to ship things so that they don't break. But then, of course, there is this idea of, okay, let me just look around my house and let me just see what I don't need, and I'll put it on Facebook Marketplace. And Facebook Marketplace, for me personally, we're actually moving, my boyfriend and I, we're moving to a larger place. And I'm already thinking to myself, I can't wait to go on Facebook Marketplace and buy things from other people in my neighborhood. So you might, it might just be people in your town that are coming to pick things up from your home. You can also meet people at like a safe spot too. You don't have to welcome people to your home, but you don't have to go through this whole shipping process is what I'm trying to say. So those are just some great, first thoughts. It is a journey, and I will share, I have made so many mistakes. I have underpriced my shipping. I have underpriced what I've sold. But again, it's the process of taking some of those first steps that's going to teach you what works for you. And in terms of time, if you don't have a lot of time, I would suggest really just starting with what you have in your home. And another really great tangible tip actually is on a social media platform, make a post that says, does anyone want a closet clean out? And again, this is if you have like an interest in fashion, you do need to have an interest. But I used to do that. I used to just go clean out people's closets because they needed a buddy. They needed some support. And then I would sell some of their clothes in terms of payment. So there's enough out there for us to get that doesn't take a lot of time, that can put straight profit into our pockets versus going to a thrift store, going to a flea market and finding things at a lower price to resell. That's when you really become a veteran and you understand what to buy because you know what the value might be if you flip it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned flea markets too, because there are some amazing ones in New York. And I'm curious, how has this all shifted for you during COVID, right? Like, I don't know, are flea markets still happening? Hopefully, probably.
A little bit. They reopened. Some of them reopened in September. However, I haven't been to one. I've only been thrifting 7 or 8 times since March. Before that, I was thrifting at least twice a week because of my tour business. I mean, this is a very personal response to what you're saying, but I really miss thrifting as a way to be social because that's how I was social. And I was meeting different people from around the world and just learning, and connecting and helping people. So it's been hard. My mental health, one of the reasons I went thrifting yesterday is I said to myself, I was like, Sammy, you need to not be on the computer so much because I'm getting screen fatigue and it's really beginning to affect my sleep patterns, things like that. But anyway, COVID and thrifting, it's been an interesting relationship. So of course the stores were closed for, 2 months, I think here in New York, or 3 months. They reopened in June. So March to June. The flea markets have started to reopen. You need a mask, even though it's outside, you absolutely have to have a mask. But what's been interesting for me to witness, Kimberly, is that because people are spending less time shopping, the online market, Amazon, online groceries, resale has gone through the roof. The percentage of people purchasing online, again, I say these stats, it's because I listen to podcasts, so I hear things. I'm not 100%, but I believe it's hovering near 30% of all goods are being purchased online right now, or at least a few months ago when we were at the height of everything. So COVID has helped resale. Long story short, it has helped resale because people are turning to purchasing online. Also, unfortunately, because it is unfortunate, people have lost their jobs. It hurts my heart, but a lot of legacy brands have shut their doors. J. Crew has shut a number of stores. I don't think they're completely out of business, but they declared bankruptcy. Brooks Brothers, same thing. Forever 21, that was before COVID, but I saw that coming. I'm sure there's a number of other brands that might have just moved to online only because people aren't coming to the stores. So again, long story short, if people aren't going to the stores to buy things, they're shopping online. And I just think that's creating more attention on resale platforms as well to purchase these name brand goods, especially if they've completely gone out of business and people love that brand. So like, where else are they going to find it? They're going to have to buy it secondhand, at least right now. So I only see the resale industry growing, and I think COVID has ironically helped it. I do believe that if you are listening and you are still, hesitant to be out in the wild, as I like to say, which I completely respect, You can go on these platforms. ThreadUp is my favorite one. That was the one I forgot to mention, Kimberly. ThredUp. ThredUp is my favorite clothing resale brand for men, women. No, yeah, I think men, women, and children. I believe it's children too. It's either ThredUp or Poshmark. The reason I like ThredUp is because ThredUp is curated. So resellers send their clothes in. ThredUp chooses the best of, nothing has snags, tears, nothing, no stains, nothing. And they photograph everything the same. And everything is sorted by size. It's sorted by brand. It's sorted by color. So Poshmark is a little overwhelming because you're shopping from people's individual closets, as they like to say. You could buy something and it might not be that great. They might have misrepresented it in their photos. ThredUp, that does not happen, or it's a very small chance. ThredUp has free shipping when you purchase $75. You can purchase multiple things from multiple people's closets because it's all one closet technically. So go check out ThredUp if you want to dabble in online resale shopping, or just you want to dabble in quote unquote thrifting, but you don't want to go to the stores or the flea markets yet. You can find some great things, and you can lessen the time it would take to find it in a thrift store. I still like going to the thrift store because, back to our conversation about self-discovery, I don't know what I'm going to find that's going to compel me to maybe step into a new version of myself. As I mentioned, my age, I've gone through a couple of, style personalities, as I'm sure you have as well, Kimberly. And I like to have a consciousness about that because it helps me to ground myself and where I'm at, but who I'm becoming. And my fashion, it almost gives me a sense of control around that. It gives me a sense of, I'm stepping into this, even though I'm not quite there, I'm stepping into it by how I'm expressing myself. So again, if you're someone that just wants to be out there thrifting and kind of feel into who the next version of yourself is going to be, being at the thrift store is the best way to do that versus shopping online. But as you get to know what you like, shopping online in terms of shopping a resale site can prove to be very easy and just a very enjoyable experience because, again, technology has grown so much.
Well, too, as I hear you saying all this, one thing that's coming to mind to me is like, okay, the most sustainable thing, right, is to shop your own freaking closet.
It is.
And so I'm curious, how do you help? Because, you probably have worked with clients around this even. Mm-hmm. How do you shop your own closet? And that's one of the things that I think early on in COVID, people were like, oh, you can learn a new language. You can learn watercolor. You can shop your closet, all this stuff of like, okay, what do you do with this extra potential, some people, time on their hands? So can you give some tips on how you encourage people to shop their own closet, kind of aligned with what you were just saying about checking in with your personal style and how it's evolving?
Yeah. And it's absolutely a check-in. It's really, it's almost a spiritual practice just to be checking in with yourself, checking in with your closet, checking in with, again, like the rhythms of your day, especially right now. Am I getting dressed? Before noon? Am I taking pride in myself? And I do believe it helps. There have been many days I've worn yoga wear, but wearing clothes that make me feel like a human helps my mental health. So shopping your closet, I think it can be very overwhelming for some people because they've collected so much and they've never done a closet clean out. So I would say first and foremost, if you have someone that you're comfortable with helping you, have a friend come over, just because that will hold you more accountable to doing it. And as you shop your closet, be comfortable with creating a bag of things that you no longer want. Because again, if you're overwhelmed with your closet, you're always just going to go to what you like. You're always going to go to that default outfit, that default look. So having a little bit less is actually helpful. It's kind of like the opposite, right? You think like, oh, I need more stuff in order to transform from my closet, but not necessarily. Something that I like to do that a lot of people don't is I actually organize my closet by color. Have you ever done that, Kimberly? Yeah. So the reason I do this is because we gravitate toward color so much more than the object or the silhouette. So creating this beautiful rainbow, and I don't even go in the order of the rainbow. I just start with black and like end with blue. It just, again, it creates this feeling of, wow, I have beautiful things. And you begin to see your things differently. When everything's mixed up, it doesn't feel beautiful. So it's almost like you can create your own little shop. So that's my, first tip. And you don't, and as you organize by color, it could be like a red shirt and red pants side by side. So don't organize by garment type, just organize by color. And then something that I used to do years ago is I would help people create outfits. And this could be really tedious, again, if you're not super into fashion. So if you have a friend that is and can help you, that will help you, because you might not do it for yourself. And that's completely okay. I struggle to do a lot of things that I need people to help me with, such as my taxes. I don't do my taxes by myself. So it's good to have someone who can help you through this process. But pull out, a couple of pieces that you haven't worn for, 6 months, a year even, after you go through and you remove things that you just no longer ever want to wear, which I would say are just things that you just know in your heart you've outgrown, which is okay. It's okay to let go of those things. But then pull out those other things that you're just like, okay, I like this. I haven't worn it. And then start to explore creating outfits and give yourself permission to try things on. Give yourself permission to make a mess. I mean, it's going to be a mess. I'm like all real talk with this because I've done it. So it will end up being like clothes on your bed, clothes on the floor, clothes in the bathroom. But you can maybe from this process pull 6 to 8 outfits, put them at the front of your closet. So actually put the outfits together. And this is very like middle school, because I used to do this in middle school. Maybe some of us listening did. I would choose my outfit the night before for school, because we'd have to wake up at 6 a.m. for school. But if you can have some outfits at the front of your closet just ready to go, that's going to facilitate your process of wearing something new. And you'd be surprised. People will notice if you're wearing something new. And again, hopefully again, if we're, going to work or we're going somewhere where people can see us, those compliments will help us to feel compelled to shop our closets more, feel compelled to, as we were talking about, Kimberly, just experiment in general, whether that's at a thrift store or in our closet. So those are my number one tips, but I am very open with, I realize like for some women, it's difficult. We've gained weight. We have stretch marks. We're upset at ourselves because we're at that state. We don't want to face ourselves. We don't want to really look in the mirror. We don't want to realize that those pants from 2 years ago don't fit. It's really difficult. And I have a lot of compassion for people who are in that place. However, something that even a friend told me earlier today is that you are worthy, and you are worthy whether your goal weight or your goal body or your goal whatever it is that your mind tells you is your worthiness. That's not true. Your worthiness is right now. So you are worthy to wear clothes that are attractive, unique, and represent who you want to be. So yes, that's my motivation.
I love it. I love it. That represent who you want to be. Yeah, because it's almost like you're taking on a persona. There was this wonderful article that I talk a lot about, but it was in the Post right when COVID hit. And it was with one of the fashion writers. And she was basically like, our clothing tells stories. So don't let it just be sweatpants right now. And, the funny thing is it's so great working from home because you can be really comfortable. And yet, you can also feel and look pulled together. And so, because our clothing does tell a story. So can you speak to that just a smidgen, Sammy, about, okay, what about working from home when maybe people aren't going to see you? Maybe you aren't even doing video stuff. How do you dress to be comfortable, right? And to feel good? Because there's this great behavioral psychologist who wrote a book, The Psychology of Fashion. And she's like, mood and clothing are interrelated.
I need to read that book. That sounds like a great book to read. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right now, we are seeing a trend in leisure wear and companies making things like cashmere sweatpants. for $200 or whatever. And so, yes, we are all turning to more comfortable materials, cottons, more free flowing pieces, or like a loose top and a tight bottom. Right now, I'm actually wearing a 1960s jumpsuit. I wish you guys could see it. It has palazzo pants at the bottom, which are basically wide-legged pants. It is fit at the waist, however, so it doesn't feel like I'm just wearing a loose garment, but it is cotton. It's comfortable. It's polka dot actually, and it's a unique piece. If I were to walk down the street, people would probably be like, "What is she wearing?" But I don't care because I like to express myself. So, in terms of working from home and having the motivation, because it really comes down to the motivation. Something that helps me is to remind myself that, and this is actually something I'm reworking right now in my life, because a lot of things have remained the same in terms of being at home. So I'm recognizing I need to renegotiate how my days are structured for me. So creating structure, creating schedule, I tell myself that's the healthiest thing to do. It is the healthiest thing. It is not being OCD. It is not being a perfectionist. It is self-care. It is worthiness. It is personal responsibility. And so when I wake up, and again, it does not happen every day, but when I get in this mindset, I say to myself, I know that I'm going to have a more productive day and a more self-loving day if I wash my face, brush my teeth, even if it's just a top knot, and put on something that feels like I am expressing myself today. Now, of course, I'm not wearing heels. I'm not wearing all the accessories that I used to. But of course, if you're someone that, if you're just usually wearing jeans and a t-shirt, you can add more accessories. You can put on some makeup. You can, again, it's really about feeling into what's working for you today, but still putting on something different than what you might have woken up in. I think that's that's the main point, right? We don't want to be lounging in our pajamas all day. So again, you don't have to put on that, fitted skirt and the blazer that you used to wear to work. But what is something different that helps you to say, this is my 20-minute to 30-minute getting ready slot. That's going to transition into my morning coffee. That's going to transition into writing down 10 things I'm grateful for. I've noticed that if I don't get ready in the morning, my morning becomes a hodgepodge of different things that kind of is productive, but it's not me being in control of where I really want my morning to be, right? So I'll be replying to emails that are not an emergency. I'm not prioritizing, essentially. So I hope that helps. I feel like, again, it's an inner conversation that we have to learn to have with ourselves, especially during these times. Because yes, you can think to yourself, well, why bother? Why bother putting anything on? But if you can recognize after a few days, because it might take a few days for you to really start to see the results. Oh, wow, when I get ready between 8:30 and 9, the rest of my day unfolds in a more structured way. But when I don't, all of a sudden it's 12, I haven't brushed my teeth, and I'm not feeling good about myself. And the residue of that lingers into my afternoon.
Yeah, no, these are great tips. And I think the number one thing that you mentioned that is so critical, and this has really been emphasized with regard to mental health, is having a structure and a routine. And so, yeah, those little things like brushing your teeth, getting
Awesome.
ready. Yeah, just like these basic things, you're like, it's still really important to kind of put all this together, even if no one else is seeing it, because I think it does affect the way you feel when you show up.
Yes, it affects how you feel about you. It affects where your brain goes. It's kind of like, again, back to like, do the hard things first. When I do hard things first in terms of my tasks, I feel more confident in myself, more self-loving, proud, and everything that comes after that is so much easier.
Love it. And my last question for you, Sammy, is the name of the podcast is Tranquility du Jour. So I'm curious, how do you find tranquility in your everyday?
Yes, definitely something back to what I was mentioning. I'm a very honest person, very, very transparent. I've really been struggling with insomnia. I've been off and on, not able to sleep. Um, Sometimes I'm really angry about it. Sometimes I'm more like, okay, this is because of the times. There's a lot of things happening. But I do find that when I actually exercise and meditate is when I can, it's like as if I can remove the anxiety through those two activities. Of course, I can't always exercise, but I've started doing more at home, like quote unquote at home exercises, which is using my body, using the floor, even if it's just 10 minutes, which I know that's like, it's physical movement. You wouldn't think that creates tranquility, but for me, at this state in this chapter of history, it releases unnecessary energy that isn't helping me to be tranquil. I've also recently adapted the Calm app, and I'm still discovering all of the functionality of the app, but I really enjoy the breathing exercises. And kind of ironic, because I know that you are a yogi as well. Quarantine gave me the opportunity to adopt yoga into my routine. So I do yoga twice a week, and I pay someone, because for me, yoga is not my default, but it creates inner peace for me. And I want to be committed to that. But the best way for me to be committed to that is to create accountability. So it's to pay a teacher twice a week for me to show up. And so that's something that I like to talk about with people, even back to taking personal responsibility for your finances. We need to learn, we always need to learn, because we're always adapting and shifting, but where is my money going that's really helping me and really serving me? And so if you're struggling with tranquility, and you need to purchase the Calm app, which is $70 for the year, or you need to hire a therapist, or you need to, go out and have a beautiful lunch by yourself once a week, because that's your moment of peace. That's your like pocket of pretty. I completely support that. And so that's what I've been adopting more and more, because again, back to structure. A lot of these things create structure. I know I have yoga Tuesday, Thursday. If I exercise every day, that is part of my structure. I've been spending most of my time at home, with the exception of a few outings. And so I personally, again, I just need to feel like, okay, I have certain activities that are for me. And that creates inner peace, that creates tranquility, that creates, again, some sort of detachment from technology, which for me it's become my whole life. And so I've recognized, okay, technology is not going anywhere. So where are you going where you don't need technology? What are you doing where you don't need technology, so that you can, detox a little bit, but also recognize that you don't need it every single moment of the day.
Beautiful. Great tips. Thank you so much, Sammy.
You're welcome. Thanks for letting me share.
In the show notes, you'll also find a link to ThredUp and Poshmark, which are two resale platforms that Sammy recommended. You'll also find a link to the Tranquility du Jour Insiders Facebook group. Would love to have you over there with us for regular updates and inspiration, including joining our online book club, where we are now reading Dolly Parton's Songteller, My Life in Lyrics. Also, if you'd like to receive a little bit of love in your inbox each week, you can sign up for Love Notes. You get inspiration, invites. You're always the first to know what's going on. There's also a link to follow Tranquility du Jour on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. A link to my socially conscious, sustainable style fashion line, TDJ by Kimberly. So thank you as always for tuning in. A big thank you to Sammy for sharing her amazing passion about vintage and thrifting. And I wish you a wonderful launch into this brand new year. Let's do it, 2021. Namaste.